It's almost take it for granted today that D-Day could only have succeeded. Some of that success was undoubtedly due to conflicts within the German High Command concerning how best to counter any invasion of the continent. Divisions that robbed the German army of its tactical flexibility. To counter the landings, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the famous Desert Fox of Afrika Korps fame, was commanding Army Group B in June 1944, garrisoning the northern French coast. He had wanted to keep strong panzer forces close to the beaches, behind a thin crust of infantry divisions to immediately counter any Allied beachhead. The commander-in-chief, Marshal von Rundstedt, was an opponent of Rommel's tactical ideas and sided with Hitler. The Führer ordered that the panzer divisions were grouped together well back from the coast. This was so that they could deliver a knockout blow at any point along the West Wall, being threatened by an Allied landing. Both Hitler and Rommel's plans had their merits. But Hitler's was adopted as many generals were concerned with where the Allies would actually land and whether they could counter it effectively. The fear was that an initial landing could be a feint, designed to draw German panzer forces into a trap, all while the real landing was made somewhere else. The mass panzer divisions, therefore, would remain stationary until the situation resolved itself and the enemy's true intentions were confirmed. The problem with Hitler's plan was that massive Allied air power prevented the timely deployment of the panzers. They were stationed 50 or so miles inland to the coast. Railway lines and roads were extensively bombed in the lead-up to and during the invasion, making panzer movements very slow and difficult. Allied fighter bombers bombed and strafed any German vehicles moving around by day. On D-Day itself, on the 6th of June 1944, the Allied landings in Normandy faced only third-rate static infantry divisions that were quickly smashed to pieces. Only on one of the American beaches, Omaha, did the Allies suffer a serious problem when the US landing coincided with a German anti-invasion exercise causing heavy losses. Hitler then dithered over whether the landings were the real deal or a feint intended to draw his panzer divisions away from the real target, which was perhaps the Pas-de-Calais in northern France. Only one complete tank unit, the famed 21st Panzer Division, was near the Normandy beaches, stationed north of the town of Carentan. It had been in scattered action throughout the early morning as British paratroopers began landing behind Sword Beach on the Orne River. Two of the 21st Panzer Division's Panzer Grenadier regiments had been committed to helping the 716th Infantry Division deal with this problem. Later that fateful morning, the entire 21st Panzers were ordered to move away from the coast to eliminate the British paratroopers, even as troops were coming ashore on Sword Beach. However, at 10:30 a.m., its orders were abruptly changed. The 21st Panzer Division was told to turn around and strike the British and Canadian landings. The 21st Panzer Division had 124 Panzerwehr IV medium tanks and an assortment of assault guns and half-tracks. Some of the Panzer Grenadiers could not disengage from fighting British paratroopers, so 3 Kampfgruppen, or battle groups, were formed. One would continue to try to pin down the British paratroopers, while the other 2 were to strike the coastal landings. About 2/3 of the division was available to make the attack onto the beaches. The main strike force was Kampfgruppe Oppelm, or Pelm, named for its commanding officer, Colonel von Oppelm. He had 2 panzer battalions and 1 Panzer Grenadier battalion, along with 1 engineer and 1 armoured artillery battalion. The second group, Kampfgruppe Rauch, had 2 Panzer Grenadier battalions and some armoured engineers and artillery. As the Kampfgruppen slowly moved into position to attack, they were assaulted by rocket-firing Typhoon aircraft, losing 6 tanks at 4 p.m. Kampfgruppe Oppelm deployed to the village of Lebusi, north of Carentan. Colonel Oppelm was told in no uncertain terms, famously stating that if they don't succeed in throwing the British into the sea, the war would be lost. At 4:20 p.m., Kampfgruppe Oppelm attacked straight into an ambush laid by elements of the British Army. Anti-tank guns of the British 27th Armoured Brigade, Staffordshire Yeomanry, and the Royal Artillery were dug in only 4 miles from the coast. There were also 3 troops of Sherman Firefly tanks, which were upgraded with the higher-velocity 17-pounder gun to deal with the big German tanks. The tanks and anti-tank guns were protecting Sword Beach, where there was some confusion as fresh units were coming ashore and there were roadblocks, damaged vehicles, and traffic jams. Kampfgruppe Oppelm advanced in 2 echelons with about 40 Panzer IV tanks. During the move, 6 Panzer IVs on the right were knocked out. On the left, the 1st Panzer Regiment lost 9 tanks. So, within the space of just a few minutes, Kampfgruppe Oppelm had lost 16 tanks and pulled back into the trees to defensive positions. But Kampfgruppe Rauch had more luck. They found a gap in the Allied lines between British and Canadian landing areas near Juno and Sword. Kampfgruppe Rauch, facing almost no opposition, reached the coast, linking up with the trapped German infantry unit, the 111th Battalion, Infantry Regiment 736, still holding positions overlooking the beach at the town of Lyon-sur-Mer. Kampfgruppe Rauch needed immediate reinforcements. The 21st Panzer Division's sudden attack towards the beaches had unnerved the British, who had temporarily halted their own advance on Caen. Kampfgruppe Rauch occupied positions on the coast for the rest of the day, expecting relief to arrive at any time to press their attack. Lieutenant Colonel Rauch thought that his Kampfgruppe would be cut off if these forces landed in his rear. That night, both 21st Panzer Division battle groups were ordered to pull back to the north of Carentan. Even if Kampfgruppe Rauch had been reinforced with tanks, the battle group would have been assaulted by naval gunfire support, airstrikes, and British tanks and anti-tank guns. But you can also imagine Rauch's success could have been multiplied several times over if Rommel's plan to keep the panzer divisions near the coast had been enacted. Multiple armoured battle groups cutting between the landing beaches could have enabled the Germans to roll up several landing points, and D-Day may have failed partially or completely. Not for the last time, Hitler's meddling assisted the Allies to victory. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Please subscribe and like the video.